Mizu was already a great monster, but Violet Mizu just took this majestic creature to a whole new level. Today we break down how to dodge and counter this monster efficiently. Welcome back to another Evasion series video, hunters. I hope you all have been enjoying the grind of Sunbreak. Violet Mizu is a super challenging monster, but also one of the most majestic monsters in Sunbreak. So today I'll be breaking down the main big attacks in this video. I won't be focusing on the smaller attacks like the bites and roars, which are pretty common to most monsters at this point. I will give a reminder here though that Mizu's roars are counterable just like all other monsters, and the timing of counters depend on your weapon of choice. So without further ado, let's grab a wire bug and head on out. So let's start off with a major difference for Violet Mizu compared to normal Mizu. This is the change to the bubbles. Normal Mizu bubbles have just kind of floated around, and if you ran into them, they would hurt and status you. Violet Mizu has changed. They no longer apply the bubbly status, but rather they pop after a second of appearing into a fiery smaller bubble that auto-targets you. As a result, you have to keep moving in this hunt, especially when you see the bubbles. As long as you're moving, the homing fiery bubbles will miss you. There are various attacks that Mizu uses to release these bubbles, so I won't go over all of them, but basically you should be aware that anytime you see even a single bubble, it will pop and it will release a fire homing bubble. So here's an example of many bubbles that are being released. Even though Mizu is not moving, I know that I don't have a big window to attack because those fire bubbles are going to be very quickly on my butt. You can pop the smaller bubbles as well before they explode, and they won't do any damage. But the bigger bubbles, if you pop them, they will explode right then and there. So honestly, even though there's multiple ways that you can break them, there's multiple bubbles that are going to be appearing. So you might as well just keep dodging and moving around to get in a position to get some attack on Mizu the second the bubbles have all popped. Countering these bubbles isn't really necessary or useful unless you have a counter that someone gives you some sort of advantage or something. Like for Insect Glaive's counter, if I counter one of the bigger bubbles, I immediately get sent into the air, I gain 1 level of aerial charge, and from there I've got great mobility to kind of like follow Mizu around. Now there is a special bubble that I want to talk about, the big homing bubble. For this attack, Mizu will back up extremely far from you. He'll take like 2 giant leaps away and create huge distance, almost to the other side of the map. And then 3 small bubbles will form and they will merge into one big one in front of Mizu. When this big bubble bursts, after about 2 seconds, it sends 6 fiery bubbles towards you at high speed. Now honestly, it's not very difficult to dodge. Moving to the sides will help you, and when it pops, just dodge roll once to the side that you're walking towards and you should be clear from the attack. Countering this attack isn't very ideal because the fire explosions are all individual, so unless your counter can withstand multi-hits, you're most likely to be hit by a second bubble explosion after countering the first. You're also most likely to be too far to return some damage to Mizu, so not the most ideal attack to counter. Next up, we have the Mizu Blast Bomb. This is a very similar attack to what regular Mizu has, but instead of just a regular bubble, it is now a big blast firebomb. This attack again isn't too hard to avoid, but it does hurt and has a big blast radius. For this attack, Mizu simply sucks in the oil, preparing to blast out a bomb. Their head kind of pulls up and their chest gets pushed up, just like how you'd imagine if, right now, if you just sucked in a whole bunch of air, you pull your head back a little bit and your chest comes out, right? When you hear Mizu suck in that air and you see this position, you have half a second to clear away from in front of Mizu. The blast goes directly in front of them. If you can go to either side, you'll be clear from the blast. However, if you can get under his head, that is also another place that is safe because the explosion does happen just a little bit ahead of Mizu. But when Mizu is enraged, Mizu does like to do 2 of these bombs back to back from time to time. Not often, but once in a while it will happen, and only when enraged, so just keep that in mind. Next up, we have one of Mizu's lesser threatening attacks, which is the Body Slam. Now this is a very slow attack, not one to be feared per se, but you should be aware that it has a wide hitbox. The indicator for this attack is very clear. They get up on their hind legs and hang both claws out in front of them. As soon as Mizu reaches peak height, they drop immediately back down and then proceed to do a slow spin or just kind of like a drift forward. This part is the dangerous part that you have to be aware of. While Mizu is dropping down, moving, or even spinning a little bit, their entire body is a hitbox. So so you just must avoid the body until the spin ends. Generally speaking, if you just back away or counter this attack, it will work. Once you counter any hit from this attack, you will be nullified against the rest of it. Moving on here, Violet Mizu does have a very similar claw smash to the normal Mizu, but when they're charged up, there is an alternate version. So normally Mizu will do 2 claw smashes back to back where they pull one arm up, raise their body just to the front, just a little bit off the ground while looking backwards. Mizu pauses here for about half a second, and then it tries to lunge forward and smash on you. Usually dodging this is very simple of just getting close to them, moving to the sides with the arm that isn't raised, or just getting right under them. If Mizu is charged up with the purple flames, the second attack gets altered into a much larger smash. Mizu basically exaggerates every indicator of this attack, so they stand up a little higher, they pull their back arm a little further, and also the arm gains some fire. You'll see the purple fire on their arms. Finally, they also lunge farther when they attack. Now, the location of this attack is set when you see the arm pulled back behind the body. Be very careful with this attack because it's not just a forward attack. Mizu will smash you from certain angles. Even if you're behind them, they will attempt to at least turn, maybe not 180 degrees, but just a little bit less than that. So just something to keep in mind. Dodging is also the same, that you just keep moving to one side to clear the attack. There is also a very quiet flame sound effect that once it expires, the attack location is set. Honestly though, this is probably something that you can't hear if you have any sort of music in the game. I usually hunt without the music and that's how I was able to notice it. But if you are close enough to Mizu, you can also roll under them. This second smash has Mizu leaping very far to actually get the smash. So if you're right under his head, he'll actually be safe because he's going to jump right over you. And then you can actually turn around and get some tail damage. So overall, not a bad attack at all. The long pause gives you enough time to clear out, and you really just don't want to be in front of Mizu when they land the smash. Next up, we have the charge up explosion. Nothing too special with this one, it's just Mizu charging up to their final form. You'll hear Mizu roar out and purple flames will appear on their head and tail. And usually this occurs just when they're enraged and they've already taken damage. The blast looks big, but I'm telling you that it has a very narrow window. At most, you just need to be one dodge roll away and you won't take any damage. Mizu does get right into the attacks after this, so you have a very small window after this roar to get some damage on the head. It's 2 or 3 hits at most, so just be aware that if you're in the right position at the right time, you can get those damage in and then move out to clear. Next up, we have the big oil ring. Now Mizu once in a while will try to trap you in a ring of exploding oil. They will circle all around you, leaving a trail of exploding fire. They don't do anything special after the ring is complete. They'll just try to attack you inside the ring if you're trapped and try to knock you into the fire. So it's a little bit dangerous. Your best option for this is to avoid being trapped altogether. The second you see Mizu moving in a circle, go back to the first oil puddle and there'll be space right next to it. Mizu will actually come there to stand. So if you can get out of there before the ring finishes, you'll obviously be clear of the ring. Alright, now we're going to jump into some of the more interesting attacks. This one I like to call the Zoomies. This is a wild attack, but I think it's very fitting for Mizu. It's a quick attack, but very easy to distinguish. Mizu starts by just jumping in the air in the spot that it's standing in. That's your indicator that this attack is coming. The second they land from that distinct jump, Mizu just leaps and starts to slither forward. Mizu will just neum forward towards you, turn around, reset their aim, and then neum back. Dodging this attack is very simple, just moving to whatever side you're moving, just keep moving. Just keep moving to that side, don't hesitate, and you'll dodge the attack. They're just going to go right by you. Mizu does take a quick reset break after the second Zoomies, but they also slide really far, so capitalizing for an attack is generally very tough. Additionally, Mizu is so mobile, so that countering this attack isn't very effective either, unless your counter deals immediate damage like Bow's Dodge Bolt. Now sometimes this attack can end very differently with a spinning smash. Usually it occurs when Mizu is enraged. Instead of just a second sprint forward, there's an indicator that pops up. Mizu does a small leaping spin into the air to get a little bit closer to you. Then they do a tiny roar and then they leap high into the air to land on your location. If you're an audio cue learner, there's also a very unique, echoey, metallic kind of sound that occurs just before this attack. As Mizu lands, they do 2 full spins, releasing oil puddles around them. Although Mizu's head is pretty clear, there's no oil puddles around their head. So if you notice this attack early enough, I recommend that you take advantage of it. The landing animation has a hitbox, but the spin doesn't, so that you can turn around and approach Mizu just as they're finishing the spin, get right to their head, and get some damage on the head. My recommendation for dodging this attack is always move to the right and forward, and then once Mizu lands, do a 180 and head straight back for the head. For some odd reason that I've only seen so far, there are less oil puddles on the right side than the left side. In this example here on the right side, there's only 1 next to their body. But on the left side, behind them from this angle, there's like 3 more, and then there's 1 in front. So it's kind of strange. Maybe that's just a cause from the spin direction, but most of the time I've seen Mizu do this, so moving to the right is always safer. Additionally, countering this attack is also very effective, especially for weapons that are very grounded with shield abilities. One final thing, the spinning smash is also something that Mizu generally likes to combo after another attack, but once in a while they will do it solo as well. So just keep in mind, they'll do the same thing, you know, they'll do the jump, then the roar, and then they'll do the big leap. Now finally, we have one of the most dangerous Violet Mizu movement abilities, the Serpent Lunges. Most definitely one of the most annoying and dangerous attacks. It's super quick, very relentless, and has a very large reach. So dodging this attack is very dependent if you see the cues early enough. And quite honestly, there's only one action that's an indicator too. It's Mizu standing up on their hind legs for like less than half a second while letting out a slightly lower hissing noise. As soon as the hissing noise stops, Mizu launches the attack forward a second later. Now from all my experience, I've only seen Mizu do this attack one way. The attack starts with the first lunge always moving to the left, and then they do the second lunge to the right. So if you want to imagine it, it's kind of like the top half of the letter S. The first one curves to the left, and then the second one curves behind you to the right. So if you imagine that top half of an S, there's a safe spot right in the middle, and if you want the safest spot, it's right where the S would start. So generally speaking, that's just on the right of where Mizu starts this attack. This is one of my favorite moves of Violet Mizu. It's such a cool move, and once you learn to see that cue and learn to dodge it, it just feels so satisfying. It's like, hey Mizu, you can't get me. I saw that. Alright, now we're moving on to the tail attacks. One of the most simple tail spins is the stationary tail spin. As it sounds, Mizu just spins right where they're standing and releases a few bubbles as they spin. The main indicator for this attack is that Mizu actually takes a half step back to one side and then let out a small roar. Whichever side Mizu steps toward is the side that the tail attack will come from, and you ideally want to move to the opposite side since the bubbles will also be released closer to where the tail swings. This attack is a very narrow hitbox, so as long as you are parallel to the opposite arm and then dodge roll away once, you should be clear from the attack. Next up, we have the forward tail brush. Bit of an interesting attack. Mizu will sort of do a back spin and the tail will brush forward, leaving a bunch of oil puddles. When enraged, Mizu will have a second follow-up attack to this where they will reset their aim towards you, roar a little bit, and then lunge forward doing the exact same body spin, but this time they move forward as well, so the oil puddles drop behind Mizu. It's honestly not a very difficult attack to dodge, you just need to be aware that when that tail starts to move or spin, just don't be right in front of them and you should be clear. There really isn't like an indicator, like a clear indicator for this attack besides like a small roar. They'll kind of just like look at you and roar straight, then begin the attack. So your best bet is that if you hear that roar, even if you're not looking at them, just try not to be directly in front of Mizu. Next tail attack I want to mention is the leaping tail smash. Now this isn't a new attack by any means, it's one of Mizu's regular moves. It's got a very distinct attack pattern. The attack will always start with like a screeching noise that sounds like Mizu is sucking in air. After this, they will hop to your left or right, and as Mizu lands, they will spin their tail and then try to slam on your location. Now to dodge this attack, you can pretty much move to whichever side that you like. Doesn't matter which one, just keep moving in one direction. If you want to be a little bit more efficient though, you basically want to move to the opposite side of which side Mizu hops because the tail attack is going to come from that side. So Mizu's body will be kind of curved and you can move from the opposite side over towards the head while the tail is kind of coming towards you. So it's kind of like you're flipping positions. The tail comes at you from one side, you move up on the other side, and then Mizu takes a short break after this attack so you can get some damage on the head. Mizu can use this attack to follow up many other attacks, so keep that in mind. It is one of the most flexible attacks that will appear many times in a hunt. Finally, we come to the coolest tailspin attack, the Majestic tailspin. I call it that just because it looks like they're treating themselves like royalty. They twist around inside their tail and get up on their hind legs. After about a second, they launch the spin outwards, spinning their tail almost in a full circle range. Now you can dodge this attack in two ways depending on your location. If you're really close, moving behind Mizu and under Mizu's chest is a safe spot. So it's kind of like this space right behind the tail and like in front of the body. Just there's a little space in the corner there that you should get to. If you're quite a distance away, your best option is just to move farther away, although do be careful. If Mizu is enraged, there is a follow-up attack with a big flipperoo and tail smash, so countering isn't entirely ideal for this attack. I would just practice getting used to dodging this attack unless you can confirm that Mizu is not enraged. The second attack I will say is a little bit more unfair. Mizu auto-targets you after they jump into the air, so it's a mid-air auto-target. So first and foremost, you gotta keep moving after the Majestic tailspin. Second, you gotta time your dodge rolls appropriately. If you are too early, you will get hit by Mizu because again, they're gonna auto-target once they're already in the air. If your weapon has a quick counter, this is the attack that's a good opportunity to counter. A little bit more risky, but it's still possible because it's a quick attack. Now there is a more risky way to dodge this second attack. Essentially, while you are under Mizu's chest, you need to stay there and kind of roll in the direction that Mizu turns to. So you can see in this crazy example here, I rolled just as Mizu flipped to attack, and since the tail attack swings from the side, I was not hit under him. This last one is definitely, like a do not try at home, but I wanted to share it with you since it is reproducible and it is actually very consistent. I've done it multiple times and it can keep you really close to Mizu so you can get right into damaging after the attack. Now just like every other monster, Violet Mizu also has a laser attack, and it's not really that much different from regular Mizu. There are still 4 different forms of attack that this Mizu will use. However, the main difference is that this attack will leave a trail of fire because of burning oil or something. So just keep that in mind that you cannot immediately go in for an attack or damage the monster right after the laser passes you because there will be that fire following right behind it. First one is very clear, very easy dodge. It's a single laser that Mizu starts by shooting up in the sky, and then it drops down on your location. They take about a second to aim while shooting upwards, but as they reach the peak crest, the location is set, and then they drop down on you. So you really just need to dodge after you see that laser kind of like peek pretty much straight up into the air. The laser lasts about 3 seconds before Mizu actually pulls the attack backwards towards them. So you can attack Mizu during this time, just stay clear of below Mizu's head until the laser attack finishes, and then you can get really close to get some more damage. The second laser is similar to the first laser where it stays in a single line. However, Mizu has more bubbles and they move their whole body horizontally, moving the laser with them. Dodging this attack is a little bit more difficult, especially if you are caught in the middle. If you are far from Mizu, just back up even further to be out of range. If you are in the middle or close though, you have to counter the attack, wire bug over it, or use any other aerial skill to get off the ground, or dolphin dive away from the attack to avoid it. Iframing the laser is probably possible, maybe with max evade window, but I myself have had a very hard time with just the regular iframes because it is such a quick attack. Now just a quick note here, Mizu loves to perform these laser attacks after bouncing around. So if you see Mizu leaping around to kind of reposition around you, expect the laser attacks. The third laser starts from the single line laser again, very simply, but there is no shot into the sky this time. Mizu starts by shooting the ground below and then moves their head up towards you in a single line. The laser will cross you and go up into the sky. After that, Mizu will pick a starting direction from the left or the right, and then they will pan across the front. So yet again, a very difficult attack to dodge. If you're caught in the middle, you might want to dolphin dive the attack or wire bug above into the air. Any weapon that has aerial capabilities can easily dodge the attack, very similar to the second attack. If you are on a hill or a slope, you can roll under it. I've done this quite a few times because the laser has an extremely narrow hitbox. If you are far away from Mizu, again just back out of range. If you're close to Mizu though, you can move past their head. The attack is less than 180 degrees, so it only covers like a cone in front of their head. This is a good attack to counter if you are close to Mizu, just when they're using this attack. But nonetheless, even if you counter it when you're far away, you'll survive, and that's what's important. Finally, the fourth version is much more rare. It's a 300-degree laser attack. It's quite slow, but it's very clear when they attack. The first indicators you want to look for is Mizu turning their head towards their tail while bringing their tail up as well. Mizu also kind of shakes a bit as a sign that they're preparing for a large laser attack. This attack starts by Mizu shooting the ground. However, unlike the previous attack, you know it's the Roundabout Laser since Mizu will start by shooting to one of the sides, instead of directly in front of them. The laser will then travel in a circular motion to almost a full circle, but they'll stop just a little bit short. So dodging this attack really depends on your position. If you are on the side that the head is turned to, that's the starting side of the laser attack, and Mizu is going to move from that side towards the front and then all the way around. So what you want to do is make sure that you are moving towards the back of Mizu's body, or kind of positioning yourself in the middle of Mizu's body. The reason I say the middle particularly is because when Mizu ends this attack, they're going to jump up and reset themselves, and their head is actually going to land right where their mid-body used to be during the attack. So it's a great way for you to kind of like reposition yourself and be ready to attack as soon as they are resetting after the attack. If you're on the opposite side of when Mizu is launching this attack, you have two options. If you're far out or kind of going to get caught in the middle, back up. Just back up, get away again. You have time. It's a much slower attack, so you don't need to wire bug or anything. The other option is if you're close enough to Mizu, you can actually get under them, roll right under and get onto the other side. And again, just like the previous attack, prepare by positioning yourself near the mid-body for when Mizu flips. So that's about it for the tail attacks. Finally, we reach Violet Mizu's ultimate attack, which is such a unique attack. Definitely one of the most majestic attacks in Sunbreak. I absolutely love it. It's very noticeable because Mizu will start off by jumping up and around a center bubble, and you'll notice this right away. The bubble will grow and grow until it reaches peak size, and then it's going to go up into the air. And there's pretty much nothing you can do at this point. Once the bubble is in the air, it's going to start following you around, while Mizu is actually going to focus back onto damaging you. It's going to try and distract you from the bubble. This ultimate has a mechanic though, which is why I love it. If you do enough damage to Mizu while this bubble is in the air, Mizu will actually get staggered, they'll make a screeching sound, and it will lose all of their purple fire bubbles around them. This is your indicator that you've done enough damage. Your camera will also then pan zoom out, and at this point, Mizu will be looking around like confused like left and right. That's your indicator, get away, step back, and the big bubble bomb is going to drop on Mizu and deal almost 2k damage. This may even get Mizu a knock, so then you can go in and get some extra damage. If you do not do enough damage in time, Mizu starts spinning in a violent circle, creating a violet bubble vortex, which then pulls you in. Just before the bomb drops, Mizu will jump into the air and release you, and at this point you can run away and dolphin dive right when the bomb is about to touch the ground. If you time this right, you'll be cleared the explosion, and from there, Mizu will also most likely be exhausted, so you can still get some good damage in. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen, for Violet Mizu. I hope this has helped you out. If it did, please consider subscribing, liking the video, and be sure to share it to your friends who may need some help. Absolutely fantastic monster. I loved all the new moves. They really fit Mizu so well. I think Capcom just did an excellent job at perfecting this HUD. So if you have any questions or comments, drop them in the comments below. And stay safe, be happy, and keep hunting. Sky Sensei is out.